general, what is trance dance?
I think it has many references, whether you're talking about it from a kind of an old shamanic context or more contemporary. In general, trance dance is probably the first way that human beings tried to make some sense of the enormity of nature and the cosmos, meaning that human beings noticed that life on this planet moved in some way, that it possessed a kind of a energy. They would call it a spirit. And so their belief was that if they could mimic this energy, if they could move like this energy, that in some way they would understand it in a deeper way. They would become possessed in a great sense by this energy. And so when you study shamanic culture, you see all kinds of animal dances, and in some places in the world there was not so much animals, but there were the elements of nature. Hawaii was also in its beginning a shamanic culture, and so they danced like the wind and the water, the fire. And so in a broad sense, we notice that there's dance on every continent on the planet that comes from this kind of early primal context. In a contemporary world, there's many people who use the term trance dance, and I think in general they use it because it's a form of dance that helps the person to rise above their linear thinking. The way that I like to think about it is that it's a way of thinking with your whole body, not just with your brain, energizing your whole body. So essentially bringing your heart into a thinking mode rather than just a feeling mode. For me, extrasensory perception is really focusing in on the heart chakra as a sense, more than your higher chakras. And so this is really where I'm trying to go with trance dance, is to bring intelligence back into the body, and I think that it's just kind of higher in the brain.
As it's practiced today in contemporary society, we're talking, I think, about trance dance as developed by Frank Natali, whenever that was. Can you say a little bit about how that was developed and what was the...
Yeah, this was probably the late 80s, the early 90s. We had been working a lot with, what I like to call progressive psychology was really kind of the impetus of the work that we were doing, and there was really a population of people that we hadn't designed anything for. It was really young people. Most of the people who were coming were much older. The young people that came because their parents thought they had a problem, and so they sent them. And we realized that there was really nothing that we had cultivated in the curriculum that attracted young people. And so the idea of dance was becoming popularized in the world. Raves were it was the beginning curve of this kind of wave, or this rave movement. And what seemed to be missing, still I think is missing in that culture, is a really strong spiritual context. And so it was the beginnings of the idea of the use of dance as a way of transcending or connecting with one's spiritual self. And so Frank was really a big catalyst in that, because early on in the game, Frank was also very much connected to the work of Osho and the whole use of moving meditations. And in fact, the first time that I ever put a bandana on was in the moving meditation, probably the dynamic meditation or Nataraj meditation or Kundalini meditation was the first time that the idea of movement and inside of a dark space was used. And so our first effort with Trance Dance was really to try to do something to energize younger people. What we discovered is that younger people certainly were attracted to it, but in an amazing way, the older crowd was actually much more attracted to it. And the reason that I think that that's true is because trance dance really, in a really remarkable kind of way, helps one to sort out this battle that we have with our ego self, but in a non-analytical way, in an energetic way. And so the reason that young people were not as attracted to it like older people is because young people were still developing an ego. It's kind of hard to confront something that you haven't cultivated yet. And so young people really approached trance dance in a different way. But the ones who were really grabbed by it was an older community of people, simply because they had cultivated enough of an ego to know how it can damage you. And so all of the psychological kinds of things had been done, and they found trance dance to be compelling because it was an energetic way of addressing their relationship with their ego self.